Hello everyone, and welcome to another video from the Tiny Menagerie. There are lots of silverfish to choose from when looking to stock a tank. There are silver sharks, silver dollars, silver foxes. Well, I present to you the silver brick. In fact, this is actually the red Eye Tetra, but I think silver brick would have been just as descriptive. And these rather square-shaped fish just might be the perfect community fish. But what do they like to keep, and what kind of setup do they need? Well, red eyes hail from South America, and in particular from the wetland areas surrounding and feeding into the Pantanal. There they congregate in large shoals, often in surprisingly open and clear waters, and this has perhaps led to one of the key characteristics of the red Eye Tetra. They are remarkably brave fish. They are always out in the open spaces of the tank, always on the lookout for passing food. And when something happens that spooks everybody into hiding, more often than not it's the red eyes who make the first appearance. And they're not just brave. Somehow they're very present. You can't really miss them. Despite being a plain silver fish, they really attract your attention with that bright red eye and very solid persona. They're also not a particularly small species. Adults will reach about 6 centimeters in length, with very little to distinguish between males and females, apart from the fact that females do get considerably fuller bodied when they're in breeding condition, conveniently making them look even squarer and even more brick-like. And just to point out, I do actually really like the shape of these fish. It's quite unusual to have such a small fish that has such a presence purely because of this shape. They look like they take up more space than they actually do. For tetras as well, red eyes are quite active and they will readily swim either in small groups or occasionally off by themselves, all around the tank looking for food. But they don't do so constantly. They'll spend quite long periods as well just staying in one place, looking for food as it passes them by rather than actively hunting it down. And even when they are on the go, they're not manic or particularly fast, and so despite the energy, they're still very easy and very peaceful to watch as they go about their business in the tank. They don't make you feel like they're in a space that's too small for them. This does mean though that they need space, and also to be kept in a group with at least 6 individuals in a tank with a minimum of 100 centimeters length. They do also prefer to have some cover available around them, not necessarily dense planting or anything like that, but hardscape, decorations, anything around that they're able to weave in and out of is certainly going to be appreciated. They're also pretty much unaffected by the colour of the substrate or the strength of the lighting, always happy to be out in the open without trying to dim their coloration in order to blend in, or trying to stick to more shadowy places like shy species tend to. They're also not particularly fussed about water flow neither. So long as it's not completely overpowering, they are strong enough swimmers who are able to handle a current. They're also perfectly comfortable though in a tank that has no or very slight flow. I'm sure you're noticing a trend here. In all honesty, there really isn't much that bothers them. Like most tetras, they do have a slight preference for acidic water, especially if you're trying to breed them. But in the normal community tank situation, they are perfectly happy with a pH anywhere between 6 and 8 and a temperature between 22 and 26. In fact, for a tetra especially, red eyes are remarkably unfazed by changes in water parameters or temperature swings, and they seem to tolerate unstable conditions better than many of their more sensitive cousins. And this ability to tolerate a wide range of conditions also means red eyes are less prone to stress than other tetras, and therefore less susceptible to many of the stress-related diseases that can really plague tetras, such as white spot and fin rot. This makes them very adaptable and hardy fish to keep, and ideal for tanks which have perhaps been set up a little bit more recently. Now though, one thing to note about red eyes is that they do have a bit of a reputation for being fin nippers, and they are certainly rather curious when they are youngsters, which will include nibbling the fins of any fish that has very soft fins, such as guppies or the long-finned bettas for example. This does fade though as they get older, and as adults they are permanently mildly boisterous with each other, but they show no interest at all in any other species, even very small ones or the long-finned varieties. and this makes red eyes suitable for keeping with a really wide range of other community fish, because they're too big to be eaten by the vast majority of other fish except the very largest ones, and they themselves have no interest in hunting the little fish. So though, if you are looking to keep a group of red eyes with other long-finned fish species and you can only buy them as babies, you might want to grow them out in a separate tank before you add them to the main community, just leaving them time to settle into adulthood so that those long fins lose that temptation. Red eyes also typically occupy the top 2/3 of the tank, and they rarely venture down to the substrate, nor do they actively hunt around the hardscape, preferring to take food from the water surface or as it drifts past them in the current. And so though, they are fairly safe to keep with shrimp, although of course any shrimplet that decides to swim up into the current is going to get snapped off pretty quickly. Adult Neocaridina though should be perfectly safe with them. And other than shrimp, red eye tetra are very easy to feed because they will eat pretty much anything, with the one caveat that it has to actually fit in their mouth, which is quite small compared to their body. And so they can struggle a little bit with larger pellets, but the vast majority of food will be eaten very quickly and greedily, as red eyes are voracious feeders that have that wonderful and very typical rapid dashing tetra behaviour where they dart up and snatch food away from the surface of the water. And so long as it fits in their mouth, they will eat it. Red eyes are not challenging to find food for, their diet can be as varied as you're capable of discovering, which includes being perfectly happy to try eating things they've never seen before, so changing their diet is easy too. This, when combined with their size and their presence, does mean that red eyes can spook very shy fish into staying hidden, especially at feeding times, as they don't like all of the rapid movement. And as they also take food from the water's surface, you will need to watch them carefully to make sure enough food is sinking past them in order for any lower dwelling fish to get their own share. But while they do eat very eagerly, red eyes actually seem to fill up quite quickly, unlike a lot of barbs or danios for example, who seem to be able to eat non-stop. Red eyes are a little bit more sensible, which means that making sure everyone is getting food around them is a bit easier because you're not having to stuff the red eyes absolutely full before they'll let a tiniest scrap pass them by. And so of course, this also makes them more suitable for keeping with species that either like to take their time when they're feeding, such as apistos for example, or for other bottom feeders like catfish, making sure that they're going to get a share too. In fact, overall, red eyes just might be the easiest tetra to keep. They're not too fast, they're nice and solid and hardy, and they're easy to keep with other species too. They are a great starting point for anyone looking to stock a community tank. Anywho though, I hope you've enjoyed this little video all about the red eye tetra. Happy fish keeping everyone, and I'll see you again soon. Bye bye!